Hi, you know it's me. I'm JCD. Please, for the love of God, call me Jada. I'm gonna do two separate little intros right here just to explain what exactly this video is. To the people who know who I am, hi, it's been a minute. I was doing a stream of reading every single Yu-Gi-Oh card, and it took me 15 days to read every single monster. So I've been a little busy. I'll make a video on that at some point soon, but I wanted to come back with some big, meaty, good content. So I figured that I'd do something that was reminiscent of one of my favorite YouTubers in general, who is JJ McCullough. Now, if you don't know JJ, he usually talks about like Canadian stuff or just general world politics, but not in a way of like, oh, here's how you should think, more of in a way of, here's what happened in this historical context, isn't that crazy? And that's how I usually like my history, is just a bunch of stories, and I know I'm summing him up horribly, but he's one of my favorite content creators. And he made a video that was over-explaining the steamed hams meme. And I thought that concept was so interesting that I thought I'd do the same for one of my favorite content creators, again, but more in the Yu-Gi-Oh space. That would be MBT, of course. Now, to the MBT viewers, hi, hello, I'm your resident expert on anime cards because I have read every single one of them. I have played with anime character decks that are accurate as far as I can possibly make them for the last 5 years, and I've made this my job. I figured that I'd go through and I'd over-explain a lot of the anime cards that were brought to MBT for these Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime cards can never be printed video. Because I thought that that'd be interesting, and talk about, like, why these cards are the way they are, how they were used, who used them, this, that, the other thing. And so, let's just get right into it.
So I've begun with Card of Sanctity, and the reason I've begun with Card of Sanctity is I know you will all post Card of Sanctity otherwise.
So the first one is Card of Sanctity, and this was used a lot by pretty much everyone. If you want to count Yugi and Atem as everyone, but yeah, they used it a lot. This card is just both players draw until they have 6 cards in their hand. And if you ever wonder why these cards exist, I guess I can easily show why that's the case. You get a lot of duels that fall into one of two camps. One, especially early on, because the cards did almost nothing, unless they were spells and traps. Like, your monsters were petting the Dark Clown at best. What, Z Metal Tank? Are you really going to be doing a lot with that? So, if you wanted any sort of combos to happen, anything interesting to actually pull the viewer's attention in, and it's not just the beginning of the progression series where you're just bashing your skull into 2,000 defense vanillas until you die, what you'd have to do is just make it so that both characters could just draw as many cards as they wanted. You'll get a lot of cards like that, like Card of Demise, Pot of Greed existing in just its infamy and how often it came up. And, of course, Card of Sanctity, because not only did it refuel you, refueled your opponent, and back in when you're writing for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, that is fair. That is fair when your cards can kind of just do anything.
Common Drone Double Sniper. So this is a really weird series of monsters. In the Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains anime, Emma Besho plays Altergeist, so her brother plays a series of monsters that specifically plus if they are being negated. Common Drone Double Sniper says, each time a card or effect that would negate an attack or card effect is activated, place a drone counter on this card, and while one or more drone counters are on this card, it can attack twice. It can attack directly, and when it does so, the battle damage inflicted to your opponent becomes 1,000. When your opponent activates a monster effect while there are 2 drone counters on this card, negate the effect, destroy that card, and then your opponent takes 1,000.
Command Drone Double Sniper, I mean, MBT already brings up that it's just Ghost Girl's brother. And by the way, just as a side note, Ghost Girl is possibly the most powerful anime deck that has ever existed. Dual monsters to GX to 5Ds to Zexal to Arc 5 to Vrains. You really do just get Ghost Girl, who's playing almost entirely meta Altergeists. Like, if I brought this deck list to Doug Zeef, he would look at me and go, well, there's some bad ratios here, but we could make it work. As opposed to, like, a Thames deck where it would just be, like, complete nonsense, and also cards that don't exist. Like, Ghost Girl has Twin Twisters, Infip. Honestly, you can just sit on Silk forever, and you're fine against, like, a lot of anime character decks, including, like, a lot of the big names, which are also from Vrains, like, Playmaker, Aoi, Go, Other big names from other series include people like Gong Strong, or Declan Akaba, or even the manga has a few, like Tragodia, are incredibly powerful, if not because they just play a real-life deck that has weird ratios like Declan, but they also may have insane cards that don't exist like Tragodia. A card that wasn't really brought up on this list was Prominence, which is just an equip spell that blows up the opponent's entire board, monsters and spells and traps, and also deals burn damage. And keep in mind, this was a GX villain. This was the main villain of the GX manga. So you have those sorts of cards. It's insane. So just to note that Ghost Girl is absolutely uncontested MVP of any anime character tournament that has an accurate character deck. I'm not counting like, oh yeah, Jaden wins because you can he plays heroes, you can put in any hero. No, I mean like accurate cards that they played. Ghost Girl is in a tier of her own, in an absolute league of her own. Blood Shepherd, on the other hand, is more just annoying than anything. You have things like Drone Barricade, where a lot of characters don't have spell and trap removal, which is very funny. But Double Sniper represents that other concept. Instead of, we need more gas to actually make duels work, there's also a big prevalence in burn cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like a huge prevalence of burn cards. And there's one good reason for it. Little Timmies, they see life point go low, they say, wow, how are they gonna get out of this? And so you have a lot of cards that either burn or attack directly, that sort of thing, just to bring the life points low. Even though the main character has like 8 cards in their hand, like a fully established board, they're sitting there with 50 life points going, I just wonder how I can make it back out of this with a shooting Quasar Dragon on my field and 5 negates. I can't imagine. But that's where you see a lot of these. Command Drone Double Sniper, it has the big funky effect that is broken, yes, but that direct attacking effect is also something that you'll see that's very prevalent.
While this card is face up on the field, all players must duel while skydiving. What if you're just like about to win a duel and your opponent metaverses into this? Do you just fucking die?
I'd like to give the context to Skydiving Field because it is possibly one of the most insane cards out of context. The way that it can really be interpreted, because how it was used in the anime, it was used in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. Skydiving Field was just picked out of a ballot for like a sports tournament, and honestly I don't feel like skydiving should be a sport, but we have badminton in the Olympics, so who cares? You kind of get a card to like ride on and make it to the ground, so if you, I guess, just have a card in your deck that you can, as soon as you get sent out of the sky, you're like, oh, let me just try and like get on this little funny dude and fly my way down very gracefully. Pretty much anything with wings would work, I guess. Like, Shark uses Submersible Carrier Arrow Shark, and that has arrow in the name, so I would imagine it's at least useful for that, I guess. But Yuma uses Zubaba Knight, so, I mean, take your pick, honestly. Just, like, something that can break the fall. Is there a Mattress Yu-Gi-Oh! Card? I don't think there's a Mattress Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. Reminder that I read every single monster, I don't think there's a Mattress Yu-Gi-Oh! Card, and if so, it's a Rush Duel card that I just did not pertain the art of. But regardless, I guess just choose something that has wings and you'll be fine. Because it's not like you don't get a parachute, your parachute just has to be a card, so I guess wind decks actually have something to win now. That's fantastic. Good on you.
When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to negate that effect.
Tubiloof is actually an interesting one. This was a card that was used by Windy, one of the Ignis in Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, the Ignis just being like their elemental counterparts. You know one being I, and he's the one that plays Ad Ignister. So you look at Windy's deck, and almost the entire deck is based around this idea of blowing up the opponent's back row, and also using the back, like trying to like translate the opponent's monsters into back row so you can blow them up. It's actually really cool. They're called Storm Riders. Tubiloof has literally nothing to do with any of it. It's just a busted hand trap. It just is. It's really funny that it has nothing to do with the rest of the archetype, which, by the way, I feel like could be printed, and honestly, would be pretty fun. Maybe not good, but it could certainly be fun. I hold this tournament thing, this casual Yu-Gi-Oh! Format called Gafar. It's essentially just Pokemon tiering system, so like OU is the TCG metagame, UU is cutting off all their heads and seeing what's left, and then keep going down there. I think Storm Riders in their current incarnation could be like UU or RU. Like, they seem pretty fine. Like, they could be printed without really any change, aside from exactly Tubiloof, which is insanity.
Oh, man. Shouts out to the synchros that are not synchros. -8 stars on this bad boy.
100-eyed dragon, as it was known, instead of 100-eyed dragon in the TCG, and then 100 eyes dragon without the hyphen, so it's not a red eyes card by complete accident in the TCG. This is one of my favorite cards, if only because it gains the effects of all dark monsters in your graveyard. Every single one. Sure, it searches once it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, but that's literally never going to happen. It gains the effects of all dark monsters, and if you play, like, actual anime decks, not like anime character decks, because Callan can barely use this, it just can't be destroyed because of Infernity Guardian, and that's about it. But if you try to build a deck around this, you find it exceptionally easy to put things like Sorcerer of Dark Magic, you can put things like Summoner Monk, so it can't be tributed, therefore Kaiju'd. Anything that can negate, Divine Serpent Get to give it infinite attack, especially if you're talking about the anime version, rather. You can put in Manga Infernity 0 so that you physically can't lose the duel. This, that, the other thing. You can just load up the graveyard with as many bricks as you really want. And if you're playing anime draw power, they're not bricks. You just discard them off of cards that are essentially Graceful Charity for both players, Card of Sanctity, you can draw them, you can just loop your hand with card destruction, it doesn't really matter. 100 Eyes Dragon is one of the most busted boss monsters ever made in the anime, and it was used against Yusei to just kind of use Guardian, Beast, and Dwarf. I think those are the only 3 cards that really mattered over the course of the duel that it would become. It didn't matter. So 100 Eyes Dragon, absolutely insane. Especially when you compare it to the TCG, where it was literally used just to be another copy of Mirage. That's it. So, yeah, it's insane.
The Masked Heroes had an entire deck lineup consisting of vanilla monsters and a lot of weird battle tricks in the GX manga. With how much they seem to like the battle phase, it's ironic their main fame in the TCG is to sit on Darklaw.
The Masked Heroes are actually fantastic in the manga, just because they are hilarious. Not only to mention that there are Masked Heroes for every single attribute in the TCG, of course, and even in the manga, once again. But, of course, they have their effects changed. And there are main deck Masked Heroes of every attribute. They're all vanillas, so I guess you can unexpected die into Darklaw. The only issue is that Darklaw has literally no effect in the manga. Isn't that fantastic? You'd love sitting on Darklaw in the TCG, sure, but have you ever tried sitting on just a 2400 attack beatstick that does literally nothing else? It's GX. You can kind of get away with that. Masked Heroes are incredible, and they also, just from how insane they are to look back on, but my personal favorite thing about them still has to be all of their cool battle tricks. I made an entire video at some point, I believe 3 years ago, talking about every single, the best anime and manga hero support. There is a lot of it. Construct Element is one of my favorites. If we really needed to add another card to this list, it would probably be Construct Element, just because, it's really cool.
Yeah, this one makes you do push-ups. Some of you need these cards.
I'm gonna withhold a lot of my comments on quiz panels just to save it for the eventual Dynasty the Useless I'm going to be making on them. Just a full breakdown of every single one of their cards. If they're possible, if they're impossible, how fun it is, that sort of thing. I just kind of want to talk about these cards a lot more, and I'm going to be making a 20 to 30 plus minute video about them. So I'm going to hold my thoughts here. All I want to bring up is that this was played by a guy named Bob Banter, who was a part of the Society of Light, which you may know from this picture that just says this place is reserved for the whites, which is horribly unfortunate. There are a few bad translations of Yu-Gi-Oh! This would be one of them. Something that I'd like to find interesting is that he is named after Bob Barker. That's his whole point. He's just a game show host, and I really like that he puts on this complete extra shebang theater kit garbage just because he plays the deck that has the funny quiz panels on them. I just find that interesting. If that's not enough for you, just wait for the Dynasty. It'll be out soon.
DEUCE transforms a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! To tennis, allowing only one monster on each side of the field to attack, and the player who deals damage twice in a row without being dealt damage by their opponent wins. Oh, like Advantage! This is sick!
And we're back again with the weird one-of GX characters. I talked about this in my top most circumstantial Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards video from the anime. That would not be a good SEO title. But it's titled something like that. And I go into more detail about this card. It's just that it is very unique, and I do like it just for flavor alone. And there are a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards that I feel like could use a bit more flavor, but then you have cards like Swing of Memories, which is like genuinely sad. Revives a normal monster, it dies at the end phase, you're just remembering, like you're pushing it on, it's pushing you on the swing, it's like higher, higher, and then you look back and he's gone. That's so sad. Look at the small child in the art and tell me they're not sad at losing their Gyokutenu Megami or whatever this thing summons. I love the flavor in that sort of thing. There's not really much of that you see in Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, but if you have any cards that you feel are incredibly flavorful and mean something to you or you just like a lot, please do leave them in the comments. I want to read them.
Outside of Zombiestein, I love both versions of Chum-Li's dad's deck from GX. It's a drunken archetype, and the dub had to change it to hot sauce. This is so fucking funny. This entire archetype is about getting too drunk and then losing your shit.
Yeah, this entire deck is just talking about alcoholism, which is kind of terrible. I mean, I know, I'm making a hot take. Alcoholism bad, guys. I could never imagine. Yu-Gi tubing will never be the same. But it's also just a bad deck, and my personal favorite thing about it is the fact that, there's a card that kind of preludes this that maybe this archetype was based on. There's no official confirmation, but I feel like it's very reminiscent of it. And you see a card called Majugire Panda. Now this is the TCG art. Just a panda throwing something. But then you see the OCG art. And there's a mother and child cowering from an abusive father, who's probably an alcoholic. Now, Chum-Li's dad is an alcoholic. Chum-Li plays koala-based cards, which are like kinda pandas. I don't know, I just think it's kinda interesting, and there's not really much else to talk about aside from the fact that it is hilarious that they have the alcoholism deck.
Designate one card in the opponent's hand and guess big or small compared to 2000 attack. If you guess correctly, you can steal that opponent's card.
Weird anime, like, wording aside, this card is even weirder than you once thought. Prophecy, as it was determined by EDO Pro, which I use for all my anime cards because I'm not just going to load everything in the dueling book and make them all myself, because that sounds like torture. EDO Pro allows for you to actually use these cards, and they do their best with the rulings. Sometimes it's buggy, like I remember anime Chronomaly Machu Mech used to have a problem where it deals damage when attack changes. There was at one point where it was asking constantly and I said yes to it at some point and it dealt 2 damage. I found out that's because there was an internal scripting error within EDO Pro itself where the extra deck monsters that had question mark attack were always being counted as like in the equation for Chronomaly Machu Mech because it's not on the field, it's just at all. And question mark cards in Yu-Gi-Oh, at least in EDO Pro, how it was coded, somehow constantly go back between +1 and -1, and they change through that on every single update of the game. So every time the game was updating in any way, shape, or form, Chronomaly Machu Mech would then ask to deal damage. And the difference between -1 and +1 is 2, so it would deal 2 whole damage. Weird interaction. But Prophecy, I don't take this as a bug because it's only recently been changed, and honestly, I liked it better this way. There was at one point where Prophecy, if you guessed small, meaning less than 2000 attack, and you picked a card in the opponent's hand that was a spell or a trap, you would then take it. Because it has less than 2000 attack. It doesn't have any attack. And this never came up in the show where it picked up a spell or trap and just stole it from the opponent's hand. So they changed it to be more accurate, but it's anime garbage, it's weird. I think it's totally fine for it to just steal a spell or trap if you guess below 2000. And this was used by Pegasus. It was honestly one of Pegasus's best cards because it might as well have been Pillager. I mean, and he beat Bandit Keith, so I mean, he kind of just has a better Pillager because it's a trap, and that kind of matters more in DM, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna search this. Nope, I'm gonna steal it. It's hilarious.
Roll a 6-sided die and draw cards equal to the result. Then send an equal number of cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard. What I like about this one is that it doesn't have a downside.
Roll of Fate is a very funny one because it's just Sixth Sense, except you don't need to call anything on the die roll, and also, here's the funny thing. You just draw 6 mill 6 instead of, oh, I just get to draw 6. No, you get to draw 6 and mill 6. It's insane. In addition, this is a quick play spell for some reason. No clue why. In addition to that, this was played by, I'll give you a guess, Joey Wheeler. Once again goes into the, we just need our characters to draw a bunch of cards thing, or they just send cards that you can't see to the graveyard, and it's like, whoa, that thing does something in the graveyard, you can Monster Reborn it, I didn't know you had Gearfried, now you can go into Gearfried but buff Muscle Man. That's insane! This is one of those cards that I find to be just bonkers, but within anime context, it's ironically totally fine. Like, what are you going to draw? Main deck 1000 Dragon? I know that this was only shown off as a joke by just screaming for potential yell, but I do find it very funny that this card was used in one of the spin-off mangas where vanilla mode was a thing. Vanilla mode being how they played. It was this weird, like, introduction to Yu-Gi-Oh! But in a horrific way that's somehow even more dumbed down than Duel Links and Speed Duel or Rush Duels could ever be. Because everything's a vanilla. You need Potential Yell to unleash the ability of one monster. What that does is mean that if you played an effect monster, it now can use its effect if you use Potential Yell on it. It's very funny. If you're wondering if there's an anime card that does this exact thing, but perchance, maybe you don't have to make it all vanilla format to use it, yes there is, it's called Big Return. It allows you to use hard once per turn or even soft once per turn effects, again, via a quick play spell. So you can use it during your opponent's turn. I'm sure this wouldn't be broken, it's not searchable, therefore what's the issue? I am smiling, and I am coping.
Dark White Adagnister can be summoned to the EMZ only. Your opponent's monsters can't target this linked card for attacks, and if an opponent's monster is destroyed by a battle, they take 500. So this was the one that they linked the Arrival Cybers Adagnister to, but they just, like, straight up did not give us this card with Adagnister because they knew it was too bad.
Yes, Dark White is terrible, and no, there's nothing really notable about it in and of itself. There is something notable about how it was implemented into EDO Pro. So, this can only be link summoned to the extra monster zone. So if you're playing links in Master Rule 3 or before, how does this work? Well, before this got changed, it didn't just not allow you to summon it, because now it just summons to the main monster zone, so it just doesn't have text. Like, that text just doesn't exist. Like how Boar Soldier really needs an errata just because it makes literally no sense whatsoever. Can only be flip summoned. But if you normal summon it, it's incredibly weird, and I'm surprised that no one has brought this to MBT's attention for any sort of Twitter thread vid. But, anyway, what he would do before this change is that if you used this in Master Rule 3, it would just appear where the extra monster zone were to be. It wouldn't even give you a choice, it would just always go to the left one. It's hilarious. So you just summon it. I wish I had footage to show of this, but it would just go to like the second from the left monster zone, just a little bit above, and just point down in where arrows don't matter at all. There was also a point where Master Rule 3 on EDO Pro just allowed you to summon links to any zone that you ever cared to summon them to, and they didn't need to be linked to link monsters, but that is a story for another day. It is very funny. Just trying to combine, like, modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And Priority is going to just clash, and it's not going to work. It's just square peg and round hole.
Ivy Bind Castle. Negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent controls, comma, But we're not done. Monsters your opponent controls cannot attack. Once per turn during your standby phase, target a Predaplant, tribute that monster, destroy this card. And then once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, inflict 800 damage to your opponent for each monster they control.
Ivy Bind Castle was used by Yuri, if you couldn't tell by it specifically using Predaplant monsters. You know, the Fusion U-Boy from Arc 5. Ivy Bind Castle is, you know, IO Royal Decree and also mine all in one that burns. It is insane. It is possibly the most broken archetype support to ever exist in any way, shape, or form. If you think that Neptibus is broken, if you think that Engage is broken, have you resolved Ivy Bind Castle? What I'd like to say is, this card was only ever used once. And also, it was outed instantaneously. This is one of the most busted cards. It got shown off once, got blasted out, and I guess Yuri was just like, that's why I don't play this.
Take equip spell cards and equip trap cards and special summon as many of them as possible as monster cards. Each of these cards will apply its equipment effect on itself if possible. This is a funny-ass card. We should print this just because I don't think there's any possible way it cannot be broken.
Armament Reincarnation is possibly one of the weirdest cards to ever exist, and I'm pretty sure that the top 100 weirdest cards to ever exist in the franchise would literally all be manga cards. Except maybe Crucify a Black Magic User to the Cross, but we're not gonna talk about crucifixion on this channel. But Armament Reincarnation, yes, the equip spells gain the effects of the equip spells because they get ghost versions of the equip spells equipped onto them in UDEUCE Pro. It's weird. It's very, very weird. There are a lot of cards that just, the only way to actually code it into UDEUCE Pro is to just clog up your entire back row. This is one of them. If you can think of any crazy combos with this, please leave them down in the comments. I am just unable. I play 1-for-1 control decks, and I really like Infernoids, so Combo Brain is not my brain. I need to have like a full written thesis on how to do any line for agents. So that ought to tell you who I am as a person.
Destroy all monsters on the field, and if you do, banish all monsters in both players' decks. Off to a good start. Once per turn, each player can special summon one monster from their graveyard. While this card is on the field, you can ignore the summoning conditions required for normal and special summons. When a monster normal or special summoned by this effect is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, banish it instead.
Underworld Circle. Yes, this is, most certainly a Yugi card, or rather an Atem card. This is, probably... What do you want me to say? I don't have a bunch of quips and a bunch of stories for all of them. This thing just banishes the opponent's deck. What do they do? You go first, you slam this down, and they're just like, oh. Here's I have 0 cards in my deck because they are playing 3 Necroface. What a fantastic day for me. The Metaphys deck is now tier 0. Incredible.
During each of your standby phases, send half the cards in your deck to the graveyard. Once per turn during main phase 1, special a random level 4 or lower monster from your deck. You can't normal or set. All monsters special by this effect, and all monsters your opponent controls must attack. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, destroy the monster and inflict damage to your opponent equal to half that monster's attack. Can't be destroyed by the effects of other spells, traps, or effect monsters. Your opponent must pay this card's maintenance cost.
Golden Castle of Stromberg. Yes, indeed, Siegfried. Elite 4chan hackered this. MBT, why do you say words sometimes? Onto the card of your opponent must pay this card's maintenance cost, which I think is actually very funny, not just in the fact that you can hack Yu-Gi-Oh cards in, just in any way, shape, or form. You kinda see that in Duelist Kingdom, where Kaiba's just like, and bring the attack points down of this fake Kaiba's monster, because that's what I want it to do. And I can just do the lever that controls the Blue Eyes attack. Who cares? But it is at the bottom of the card, so I like that he didn't even put it, like, portmanteaued into the first effect. He's just like, oh, by the way. And also, this was defeated by Yugi having 1 card in his deck. It rounds in every other case, but not this one, I guess. I don't get it. Just take the 1 card. Or like just mill 0. It doesn't need to destroy itself. I don't get it. Half a 0/0. That Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't make sense. Why do we still have missing the timing? But yes, I do just have like kind of a funny personal anecdote about this card. Not the anime version, but the real life version. And not even the real life version, but the real life version that was adapted into Duel Links. Duel Links is very funny because a lot of the time your opponents will genuinely not read your cards if it is not a literal tier 1 deck. So I guess at the time of this video they know every DDD card by heart, but they have no idea what a Cyber Angel is. So you might be able to get away with a lot, and also any deck can hit King of Games anyway. That's not a scrub quote. I've done it with many jank things, including this deck. It was essentially the Parasite deck before Weeble's skill got nerfed, where you just shuffled Parasites to your opponent's deck face up at the start of the duel, and you could just Insect Whistle to put it on top. You'd burn them with that, and things like Lava Golem. And of course, your support would be attacking with Prinzessin and Golden Castle of Stromberg being a very big factor. I'm pretty sure I won more than half of my games by my opponents smacking directly into my face, and then their monster getting destroyed and magic cylindering them for game. I have also had multiple games, not the majority at least, but a lot of them, where they did this more than once in a duel. More than once in a turn, even. They just refused to read the card that flashed up on the screen going, "Woo," and just said, I don't know. Can anyone please let me know if Golden Castle of Stromberg just shows up as a black void with no text on it on Duel Links for anyone else's clients? Because I can read it perfectly fine. I don't get it.
Oh, this is interesting. Once per turn, if you skip the battle phase, you can make your opponent's life points become 1.
YUGIOH Charaska is a very funny card that was used in the anime. Yes, it lowers the opponent's life points to 1, but my personal favorite thing about it is that it never actually burned for anything. It never... The person who used this, Rex Goodwin, never burned to actually kill any of them. So they were still on the field. They just kind of were out of commission because something Shadow Game, something could not ride Motorcycle anymore, except they weren't out of the game because their cards were still used by Yusei because the man literally just straight up cheats. Like, you can talk about Atem using the powers of fate, but hey, that's at least like a thing everyone's aware of him doing at this point, so they're just like, yeah, that's just his superpower, you know? Like, who cares? But Yusei is just straight up breaking the rules of the game. Like, it's like, you know, there's a difference in cheating between kicking your opponent's chair out from under them and normal summoning twice. This is more than normal summoning twice kind of cheating. So YUGIOH Charaska was used to set the opponent's life points to 1, that was used to Crow and to Jack, attempted to be used by Yusei, didn't work, to Yusei rather. And the reason that it just baffles me, because if Rex knew that could happen, then he could have just burned, because this man literally played Meteor Flare in his deck. He played Meteor Flare, which burns for 2,000. You can just kill them. So Yusei can't make this comeback, but whatever. You can even do both in the same turn, honestly. Just end him that turn. Like, it doesn't matter. Who cares? Who would even care? Also, why wouldn't you just get rid of Yusei first? Like, let's be honest, you know him. I personally take that as a plot hole.
When you activate this card, each player can add 1 spell card from their deck to their hand. While this card is face up on the field, either player can activate spell cards on their opponent's turn. This just makes you play Magic.
And it's Spell Sanctuary. This was brought up earlier. It's kind of just make things magic, and also this was used in the Battle City duel of Yugi versus Kaiba, which a lot of people say is a top 5 duel in the entire series, if not the entire franchise. And I'd have to rank all of them, but it's probably going to be really high up there. Let me know if you want an every single duel in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise video. I'll probably split it up into, like, ranking every duel in all of the series so that I can, like, make a series out of it and, like, make money, and, like, maybe that would do better on YouTube, and it's also not 7 hours, and then maybe I just combine all of them into one singular list and just kind of put it out, or maybe I'll just staple that, like, I don't know. I've got plans, but it would be a bunch of work, and I would have to watch 6 shows that, let's be completely honest with ourselves here, I'm the one with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Tattoos right now, among other tattoos. I mean, they're awesome, so anyone judging, you're lame. But the shows aren't good. This is coming from someone with this much Yu-Gi-Oh! Ink, more than I'm sure you've seen from anyone else, if if there is anyone else, I will literally invite them on stream and box them. But this is also coming from someone who, when they transitioned, changed their name to Jada. Because of Jaden. My little kin boy. I love this franchise. The shows are not the best.
NUMERON spell revision / NUMERON rewriting magic. When your opponent activates a spell card, negate the activation and effect of that card. Choose a spell card in your opponent's deck and activate it on their side of the field. That's a nice Rite of Aramis here. But what if instead of that, you super polyed your whole...
NUMERON spell revision is a very, very funny card to talk about here. And that's primarily because it is responsible for one of the few ZTKs that have ever been theoretically shown, let alone actually shown, either in real life, in a completely staged replay, locals, or in the anime. The other one is between Sartorius and Prince Ojin, but who cares about Prince Ojin? This is between Dawn Thousand and a dude who I'm sure matters to someone, but because he does, I'm not gonna say his name because I genuinely don't remember it. It's like, Ned. So Dawn Thousand is fighting Ned, and Dawn Thousand just passes his first turn fully without playing a single card, which means it's technically not a 0-turn kill, but come on, it doesn't matter. If Ned went first, it would have been the same thing anyway because of how NUMERON Network works in the anime, how you can just play it during your opponent's draw phase. But what he does is summon a bunch of dragons, play a spell, and then Dawn Thousand is like, nah, NUMERON Network, gonna send NUMERON Spell Revision, Counter Trap. I'm gonna change that into a spell that burns you for the attack of all your dragon monsters. So you die. So without taking a single turn, really, Dawn Thousand just killed Ned. Isn't that incredible? You really get a few really weird circumstances in the anime, like a really unlikely Exodia or 0-turn kills. If you didn't know that was a thing, now you do.
Now, this is strange. Do you... This is cool for sure.
Card of Desperation. This was actually, if you're wondering the broken combos that could be used with this, don't! Because there's literally a broken combo that this was used in the manga. So this was used by Manga Kite. He had Card of Desperation, which, you know, sends your entire deck to the graveyard, and Graveyard Rebound, which allows you to activate spells and traps, or just anything from your graveyard. You just go to your field and they activate. So yes, Graveyard Rebound is the problem card there, because Graveyard Rebound plus Sparks is literally game. Graveyard Rebound plus Red Medicine is infinite life gain that is technically changing the game state and would not be slow play. You just keep gaining life points. I don't know at what point a judge would say you're just timer scamming, but if there is, like, I don't know, Flintlock has something for that with morale boost, but I have no idea if there's a genuine number or a time or anything like that. But yeah, you can just do anything. Like, just send your whole deck, Graveyard Rebound. I'm sure you can find an FTK. I don't care what deck you're using. You can definitely kill with that if you run spells or traps. So I guess Super Heavy Samurai are kind of out of the equation in that one. But yeah, this was literally just used in an insane combo.
Shouts out to Manga Stratos. You can have this card's attack until the end phase to allow this card to attack your opponent directly this turn. This is a different card.
It's not Stratos. It's... My boy. I touched the wrong tattoo. Oh, this is my boy, Killua. Watch Hunter x Hunter. I swear to God, the manga's coming back soon. Tagashi said it himself. But, you know, my poor hero boy. I'm so glad you got stronger. Man was born with leukemia and then became a bodybuilder.
Every day I am upset we did not get this frame on Zark.
Yep, this is what we in the community, at least my community, call Neapolitan Zark after the ice cream. It is incredibly funny and also much more broken because, you know, remember Card of Sanctity from earlier? You want to make your opponent draw all the cards and then destroy the cards in their hand? There's also something that could theoretically out the gods, the God Relay Soul combo, but no, that's not happening. This thing is insane, and not just because it is what it is, it's also because Anime Astrograph Sorcerer is less Electromite combo fuel and more it summons itself whenever a card's destroyed, any amount of cards, puts them back to their original positions, and then you contribute it to then banish things from your deck or extra deck or graveyard or anywhere that's not your hand. Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Clearwing Synchro Dragon, and Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, and then you just summon Zark. It's insane. You just crash something, you now have Zark. It might as well be Mistake, it has 4,000 attack, and it is pretty hard to out by anything that's not a kaiju or relinquished. Sure does not leave the field when relinquished, I guess.
You're fucking with me. Anime Boost Warrior is a tuner. I knew it! We got so much shit in that episode of History of Jank for using Boost Warrior as a tuner. And then after the episode, we were looking at the comments, we were like, Boost Warrior isn't a tuner? I knew I was getting fucking Mandela affected. It is a tuner in the anime.
I'm actually the opposite way about Boost Warrior. I played so much of Laval Quasar back when that was a thing. Like, at least online, I did on, like, Dueling Network, not even book, and I used it on, like, well, I think it was Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro at the time? It was something like that. It was the precursor to Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro. Back when I was in, like, 8th grade or in high school, I used to play a lot of that deck, right? I think that's about when it came out, or when I was really playing it, I suppose. It was in middle school, yeah. And when I came into playing anime decks and stuff like that, this is a card that, you know, is a tuner in the anime and not in the real life. So I remember misplaying a lot because of it. I'm glad that MBT is the exact opposite of me. I find that very funny.
D. This man got an extra D!
So yes, about DDDD, Super Dimensional Sovereign Emperor Zero Paradox, yes, I had to read that. I don't care who you are, you're not remembering all that. Has the special text of treat cards in your opponent's pendulum zone as your own. This is impossible to code on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, apparently, and has not been translated. A lot of the Hydro Drives haven't, and this hasn't either. What does this even mean? Like, you can pendulum summon if your opponent has the correct scales? Can you use their effects? What does this even mean? There are a lot of manga cards that you can kind of extrapolate, and there are others that just... What do you do with this? Not to mention, I don't know what the fourth D stands for. Is it just a different dimension demon? Like, it's just an even further out dimension? It's like, yeah, if you turn right at where the old bar used to be, you've gone too far. Is it just, like, the dapper different dimension demon? Because he's wearing, like, a bunch of scorpion tails? I don't know if that's a part of his anatomy, or if he just prefers to have them, but either way, you keep going, King. I just don't get it. If anyone knows what it is, please let me know. I need to know this, or just give me your funniest responses.
Problem, hold your breath for 1 minute. I can do that shit. Easy. Alright, give me that 30.
Now, I'm going to end this video with a controversial take, and that take is MBT was breathing through his nose. Do it again. Prove it. Just like, close hanger. Just close it all up. Try it. 1 minute. I dare you. I dare you. Send it to me on Twitter. I would say, if I had a safe for work Twitter that I used. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope that I gave a lot more context and brought a little bit more of that anime flair and just told some fun stories and this, that, the other thing. I'm gonna be making a lot more content soon enough. It's just a matter of I had to really recover after 15 days straight of streaming. Like, I'm looking at the streaming software right now, and I'm telling you right now, as I've been recording this entire video, I swear to God, I've been getting flashbacks to sleeping on an air mattress right there on stream. If you'd like to ever follow those streams, be sure to go on over to twitch.tv/JCDgato and just check me out. I would really appreciate it, and also, I've been rated by MBT a few times, so I'm pretty sure you know who I am. Stick around, we'll do some cool stuff. But in any case, hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, I'm just gonna, like, I don't... Outros have always felt very stilted and like, hey guys, JCD, out! And I hate that, except I don't know how to trail off, so I guess the video just ends mid-sentence.